Imagine uniting an entire civilization by force. Imagine building walls so vast they can be seen from space. Imagine creating an army of clay to guard you in the afterlife. He was feared more than any king before him. He erased rival philosophies. He standardized an empire. He searched for immortality and poisoned himself to death. His name was Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of China. This is the story of a boy who conquered chaos, a ruler who tried to defeat time itself, and a legacy that still shapes the world today.
Okay, just imagine for a second, stumbling upon an entire army. But they're not made of flesh and blood. No, they're clay. Thousands and thousands of silent soldiers, just standing guard for over 2,000 years. And they were all made to protect one single man in the afterlife. So this is his story, the story of the world he built and the world he absolutely terrorized.
So, who was this guy? I mean, who could possibly be so powerful, or maybe so paranoid, or so visionary that he needed a whole army to go with him into death? Well, that man was Qin Shi Huang, the very first emperor of China. And his story? Wow, it is just packed with some really shocking contradictions.
You see, this was the man who literally forged a nation out of 7 warring states. He created the very idea of China. But, and this is a huge but, he did it with a kind of brutality that still echoes through history today. That right there, that's the central conflict of his legacy, and we are going to dive into both sides of this incredible story.
All right, so to really get a handle on the emperor, you first have to understand the world that made him. And let me tell you, it was a world of pure chaos, violence, and just constant, unending war.
I mean, for over 250 years, China wasn't really a country. It was a bleeding battleground. And right into the middle of all that chaos, in 259 BCE, a boy named Ying Zheng was born. He was the one who would inherit the throne of the Qin state, which, by the way, was the most ruthless and militaristic of all of them. And you better believe he learned its brutal lessons very, very well.
And this is the heart of the whole paradox. On one hand, you've got this unifier, a guy who standardized everything, a builder of absolute wonders. But on the other hand, a book-burning tyrant who ruled through nothing but pure terror. So the question is, how does one guy become both a creator and a destroyer on such an epic scale?
His journey from being just a boy king to the absolute ruler of a unified empire, well, it was swift and it was merciless. He learned really, really early on that power wasn't something you're given, it's something you have to seize.
I mean, think about it. At just 13, he was a king, but really only a name. By the time he was 22, he had ruthlessly outmaneuvered everyone, even crushing a coup attempt that involved his own mother. He grabbed absolute control and just went all in on this philosophy called legalism. It was basically an idea born out of the chaos of the era. The gist was this: people are fundamentally selfish, so the only way to keep order is with absolute, unquestionable authority and punishments that are just terrifyingly severe. So with all his power locked down at home, he just unleashed the Qin war machine on his rivals. And in less than 10 years, state after state after state just fell. This wasn't just a bunch of battles, you guys. This was a systematic, lightning-fast demolition of an entire world order that had been around for centuries.
And just like that, poof, the Warring States period was over. The constant, brutal warfare that his ancestors had known their whole lives, gone. For the very first time, the lands that we now call China were one single unified entity, under one single ruler. But look, conquering all those states, that was only the beginning. Now came the really hard part. How do you transform this patchwork of defeated enemies into a single, functioning empire?
Well, first things first, he knew the title king just wasn't going to cut it anymore. It was too small, so he invented a totally new one, Huangdi, which we translate as emperor. He basically combined the words for mythical, godlike rulers from the past. He wasn't just another monarch, he was Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor. He was literally starting history all over again with himself.
And he remade society from the ground up. I mean, totally. The old noble families and their little fiefdoms, gone, abolished. Now, everyone had to use the same money, the same weights and measures. He even standardized the width of cart axles, which sounds kind of boring, but think about it. That meant any cart could travel on any road anywhere in the empire, creating a true national road system.
And probably most important of all, he standardized the writing script. This was a game changer, a reform so powerful that an official in the far south could now send a message that would be perfectly understood by an official in the far north. It was like creating a single brain for the whole empire. But this grand vision of unity, it came at an absolutely staggering human cost. All of his massive projects, we're talking the Great Wall, huge palaces, and of course, his own tomb. They were all built by enormous armies of forced labor. I mean, just look at that number. An estimated 700,000 people were forced to build his final resting place, just for him.
And this is where we really start to see the dark side of his rule. The emperor's obsession with order, with total control. It led to a system of just unparalleled brutality.
See, under his legalist system, fear wasn't just a tool the government used, fear was the government. The slightest little criticism of the emperor could get you killed. Punishments were just unspeakably horrific, and they were designed that way, to terrorize everyone into absolute obedience. There was no room for mercy, just the cold, hard, inescapable law.
His desire for total control was just absolute. He wanted to eliminate any idea, any thought that could possibly challenge his rule. So he ordered the infamous burning of the books. Countless historical and philosophical texts were just destroyed, wiped from existence. And the scholars who dared to disagree, especially Confucians who looked to the past for wisdom, legend says many of them were executed. In his mind, history didn't matter anymore. History was going to start with him.
So, as he got older, the man who had conquered every single rival on Earth became obsessed with conquering his final enemy, death itself. His paranoia just skyrocketed, and with it, his desperation.
He sent entire expeditions out to sea, searching for a mythical elixir of life. He consulted all kinds of alchemists and mystics, and here's the crazy, tragic irony of it all. What did they give him? Potions. Potions filled with mercury. So the very thing he was taking to live forever was actually killing him. The man who conquered China was literally poisoning himself, speeding up the one thing he feared most.
And his death was just as bizarre as his life. He actually died while he was on a tour of his empire. But his top advisors, they were so terrified of the chaos that would erupt that they kept his death a secret. For 2 months, they hauled his decomposing body back to the capital, and, get this, they used carts full of rotting fish to mask the smell, all while they were busy forging his will to put their own puppet on the throne. You just can't make this stuff up.
So after all that, what is his legacy? I mean, the actual dynasty he built, the Qin dynasty, it collapsed almost immediately after he died. But the idea he created, the idea of a single, unified China, well, that would change the world forever.
And of course, his most famous legacy is the one we started with, that silent army he built for the afterlife. We're talking about 8,000 soldiers, plus chariots, horses, and every single warrior has a unique face. They're all just standing there in formation, ready to protect him for all eternity. It's really the ultimate monument to both his incredible power and his deep, deep paranoia. And this brings us to the final and, honestly, the most mind-bending paradox of his entire rule. The Qin dynasty, the one he bragged would last for 10,000 generations, it fell apart just a few years after he died. Total failure, right? But the imperial system he created, the centralized government, the unified script, the very concept of China, that became the blueprint. The blueprint for every single Chinese dynasty for the next 2,000 years.
So we end right back where we started. Was Qin Shi Huang a visionary or a tyrant? Did he create a civilization, or did he nearly destroy it in the process? I mean, he unified a nation, but he silenced its people. He built wonders, but the human price was horrific. The answer, it seems, isn't one or the other. He was both. And that's exactly what makes him one of the most fascinating and most controversial figures in all of history.
Follow this channel. Press like and subscribe for more fascinating stories from history. If you have questions, leave a comment below. Your curiosity keeps history alive.